It's Purple Daily on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
You like that? 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, welcome into a Feedback Friday. No spoilers here. This is not going to be an official Netflix quarterback recap episode. There are a lot of Kirk Cousins questions on Feedback Friday here that we will get to, but we will not spoil anything. If you were planning on watching the docuseries throughout the weekend, then we will give you space. You can have that space. And you can listen to our three-part recap, trio of episodes on the Purple Daily podcast feed. This show is presented by TCL, which has award-winning TVs for any budget, any space, all with stunning picture quality. And TCL makes more than just TVs. They offer mobile products, audio devices, and home appliances. TCL brings you joy and simplicity through innovative technology. You can learn more at TCL.com. And Judd, Feedback Friday is also presented by our friends at Surly Brewing Company, specifically the Before I Die Pilsner, which we had a couple of those earlier this week. A little Purple Daily.
I got some in the fridge.
Show meeting, quote unquote.
And those are absolutely delicious. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you have not tried the new Before I Die, which came out in the spring, it's refreshing. It's fantastic. It is a good session beer. So like it's perfect for football because you can consume a few and it will not knock you off your feet. And you will absolutely love it. And of course, the whole mission, the whole Score North Purple Daily mission of Phil, Judd, Declan is before we die, we want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl. So what better way to prepare for training camp than to couple the mission with the beer that speaks the same language as we do from our friends at Surly Brewing. Before I Die, now in 12 packs as well. Available at your local liquor stores and bars.
Yeah.
Check it out. It is delicious.
Yes.
And you know what, again? Show us your cans. It's been a while.
Show us your cans. Send us pictures of your cans on Twitter, maybe on Threads.
Oh, Threads.
All of us are on
Threads. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly right.
Instagram, wherever you want. We're pretty much everywhere. We're omnipresent. Since we brought up the show meeting at Surly the other day, we should start Feedback Friday here with a little programming note that Before I Die will be returning, and it'll include Jesse, Thor, and Judd. We're going to have a packed house on the Before I Die podcast every Monday. Purple Daily on Draft with Declan, Thor, and Tyler Fornes will continue all throughout the season. It's going to be a year-round show going up until next year's NFL Draft. And so you can find that. And then obviously Vikings Vent Line in-season edition right after games are over. If you've never been part of that before, it's the place to be after Vikings games finish up. So we're already behind the scenes here planning and plotting with training camp a couple weeks away, our fall schedule. Alex Boone is going to come back and do film reviews. And instead of him and I convening late at night to do these reviews, I'm trying to get him corralled for like a middle of the day session so all of us can be. People are like, why aren't the other guys involved? Because we literally were recording that thing up until midnight. Yeah. And you guys are already doing a bunch of stuff.
Tell Boone,
too.
Come on, man. We're getting old. We need to get our sleep.
Yeah, and he sleeps like 3 hours a night.
Yeah, not me, man. You don't get these great looks that I got right here without a lot of R&R.
I need my 8 to 9 hours.
I'm with Declan.
Need it.
I'm with Declan. Seven
Boone needs
less?
like 8 to 9 hours a week, and he's ready to rock and roll.
Crazy.
So we got all kinds of fun stuff. And if you guys have suggestions for what you'd like to see us do or add or segment ideas, throw them at us, and we'll look to sprinkle stuff in. For Feedback Friday here, you can always hit us up through the Score North app. There's a feedback link at the bottom of the Score North app. And we just kind of stockpile as many questions and get to as many as we can from the week here. So we'll start with this one. Alex Goodpaster, he says, I'm currently binging the new Netflix show, and I'm on episode 3. In this episode, we see how beat up Kirk Cousins gets each game. This got me thinking, why haven't the Vikings made any changes to the offensive line this offseason? Do we really think that Kirk will be able to take another season of these hits? Yeah, the Vikings are bringing back basically their entire offensive line room. I think it's 11 out of 12 returning to the offensive line room, including like the practice squad guys. So, yeah, now that you've seen him like grabbing his ribs and pretty much every scene, he's like coughing up blood almost, you know.
You guys are picking him up.
God.
You okay? You okay? Yeah, I'm fine.
Coughs up a rib.
That one.
So I think there's a few things here. One, and we've talked about this. There's no question he took a beating, and first of all, kudos to him because he took that and started every game again. So Kirk deserves. Is Kirk tough? There's no question, and I think we have always praised him because his games played, Mark, is pretty damn incredible. That being said, I think there's a few things at work, and it's also this. If you watch Mahomes' portion of this documentary, it ain't like he doesn't get touched. He gets hit. I mean, the fact is, I think we are shocked because we watch the game, like in my case, from the press box for the home games, or in our case, most of the time on TV. And so you see the long view and the quarterback throws the ball and then the camera goes with the receiver. Mm-hmm. I don't think we realize and this documentary does a great job of this, how fast this game moves and how brutal this game is. And so I think we're all sort of shocked about like, oh, I didn't realize Kirk got hit that much. Did he get hit excessively in 2022? Absolutely. I'm not going to debate that.
I think he took more hits than any
he did. So there's no question.
So.
There's no question. And I think that you can make a pretty good case that there will be some question marks about if, especially Ed Ingram at right guard, if he struggles again, that's a big problem. All of that being said, we also need to take a step back and realize that this game is absolutely a brutal game and quarterbacks get hit. And this is why this goes back to a conversation, Phil, we've been having for years about Kirk, which is this is why it's so imperative to feel the pressure and be able to do what Tom Brady could, which was sort of slide around. Now Mahomes can flat out scramble. That's a gift. But there's a lot of things at work here. And one is just the insight into what it actually looks like to play quarterback when the camera stays on the quarterback.
Yeah, there's a lot to, first of all, the interior of the Vikings offensive line is not great at pass protection relative to the rest of the league. So that is a fact. It's also a fact that Kirk is not as mobile as some of the other top, 15-ish quarterbacks, right? He's not as mobile as Mahomes. I don't think he's as immobile as Brady in his 40s. When like that run against the Cardinals, Kirk can scoot around a little bit, but he's mostly a sitting duck in the pocket. So like that up the middle interior pressure with mostly a sitting duck quarterback, it's kind of shocking that the Vikings have continued. And I get like it's not like they haven't tried to address it. Ezra Cleveland was a second-round pick a few years ago. Ed Ingram's a second-round pick. Bradbury's a first-round pick. They're literally using first and second-round picks on interior offensive linemen. I mean, Cleveland was a tackle that they converted to guard. So it's not for lack of trying with the last two front offices, but to this point, as of right now, they don't do well in pass protection up the middle, and Kirk has suffered for it. So, and that's the thing, like in this debate about how far can Kirk take a team, until the Vikings solve that problem, it's always going to be an excuse or a reason or a thing, right? Well, I mean, what's he supposed to do? He's sitting back there and he's got ribs coming out of his jersey. What do you want the guy to do? And he is tough as nails. For him to get back in these games and still throw the ball in the fourth quarter like he did, and have the 8 fourth quarter comebacks knowing how much pain he was in, it is really commendable. But yeah, I guess long answer longer, I am surprised that they have brought back basically the same offensive line, including backups.
And you could actually make a case that it's surprising that Ingram was allowed to start all of last season, right? I mean, that could be like, there was a case to be made. They did show one, and I think there were like 2 or 3 times where Ingram literally trips Kirk.
Yep.
And there was one time that they did show this. And so we talked about this. Should Ed Ingram have been benched in the 2022 season? And they didn't. Now they're banking on that experience helping him, but I mean, he struggled enough where I think it was justified at times, and I think his play did improve eventually. But there would certainly have not been, I don't think, an eyebrow raised if the Vikings had said, you know what, Ed, we're going to try something different this week at right guard.
That's what I was surprised at, that they didn't even bring in some other veteran, because I think that's the missing ingredient that can take this offense from a fringe top 10 offense into being a top 5 offense. And what was really weird during the quarterback doc is, and something I noticed by the end of it, so Mahomes is always out there high-fiving guys. There was like no scene that I can really remember where Kirk was like praising his offensive line. Not to say he doesn't, Not to say it's just because the cameras were on those scenes that he wasn't also praising his offensive line, but I found it really weird that Mahomes is out there like high-fiving guys after extra points and field goals. And here's Kirk just always like trotting right back to the sideline, some high fives here and there. But that's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
I watched
Mahomes, Kirk, I think some of this stuff, it's funny. It confirms kind of both sides, right? If you love Kirk, he comes off as a great family man, a great studious preparer, accurate, all these things. But then if you have holes to pick too, and that's been us throughout the years, a lot of the stuff that you see in this documentary is validated, right? And him not being as much of a rah, like he's not like the guy that gets everyone together on a regular basis like Patrick Mahomes on the sidelines, right? Patrick Mahomes is clearly the leader of the party, right? And Kirk is there to kind of do his job. Sometimes might lead the party, but he doesn't love being in the center focus. And I think that became apparent throughout the 8 episodes.
And the last thing about the protection to keep in mind that's probably not obvious, but should be pointed out is, for instance, the perfect example is this. When he takes that hit against the Commanders where he gets the wind knocked out of him and stays down, okay? And this is sort of a credit to him, but it's part of the problem. That's a deep route to Jefferson. That has to be allowed to develop. So like in defense of the O-line there, it's one thing if the interior rush just walks right in, which we have seen before. So I'm not defending them completely. But like if you are going to have deep routes run, you are going to need to hang in there and take hits. And it's not like, I think that we think, well, yeah, I mean, the quarterback should be protected and be clean. If you're going to have deep routes, they can only keep you clean for so long. So like when you're watching actual pass plays developing, like the linemen are holding on, and this is true of a lot of teams, for dear life at that point.
Yeah.
So like there can't be an expectation of, well, why did Kirk get hit on that deep pass to Jefferson? Because they held out probably as long as they possibly could, and the Commanders were damn good. That defensive line was good. So like this is all, again, we are getting a look that we ordinarily don't get, which is awesome, but it causes us to question things that the coaching staff probably has less questions about, at least sometimes.
Let's keep going here on Feedback Friday. Matt Skubich, we're going to go with. Been a listener of the show for a few years now. Just wanted to give you guys a bold prediction heading into the 2023 season.
All right.
The Netflix documentary series that came out, I believe America is going to fall in love with Kirk Cousins. Look at Joel Damon from the PGA Netflix documentary.
Yeah.
When people can learn more about these athletes, it gives you a more of a likelihood to cheer for them on game day. Joel Damon was toward the bottom of social media following. Now he blew up after the Netflix series on professional golf. He was a very likable personality. I'm hoping Kirk has a great 2023, and we'll have to just stay tuned. Yeah, do you think? And we're only like 2 days into this thing. Give it another week for more people to be able to watch it. But do you think the general public? Do you think his approval rating, Kirk's like general public approval rating, will go up after this docuseries?
Yes, I do.
Me too.
But I think more than anything, what it's going to do is embolden the Kirk fans to like him more. I mean, he's a likable, like off the field and stuff. He comes across as a likable guy. But do I think that like all of the people that bash Kirk are now going to say, well, he's a great dad? So no. I actually think that his rating within the Kirk fiefdom is going to increase a lot. Like, because people are going to be like, this is what we knew, and this is great. Here's the thing with Kirk, though, guys. Do you think when we talk about this, I don't think anyone has ever like thought that Kirk is like a bad guy or something like that as a person. Yeah. So, I think the people that criticize Kirk are demanding things on the field. Do I think that those people are going to change a lot? Probably not. But I mean, he is a likable dude. I'm not going to take that from him. In some ways, he is a very relatable human being.
Yeah, I think his stock is going to go up from the general public. I don't know if it's on like Joel Damon and Kirk. Like, that's not a great comparison. Like, Damon's is one of the guys who likes to drink some beers and be the 88th ranked golfer in the world. Like,
he's
that's
super self-deprecating too, and like he's kind of an Eeyore personality. That's not as much Kirk.
But I do think his stock is on the rise because of this documentary. How he's perceived, at least. I do think it's on the rise.
Yeah, people. I think maybe it hasn't been. The public hasn't been reminded of just how much of an underdog story Kirk has been throughout his football career. At this point now, the last 6 years, he's had these guaranteed contracts. He's been one of the highest paid quarterbacks I think he's actually made like top 3 money of any quarterback the last 6 or 7 years, just in terms of like cash in his bank account.
Sure.
So it's underdog is not the first thing you think of now when you think of Kirk. But if you go back to like high school, college, Michigan State, he was not highly recruited. He was not like an all-state player in high school. He didn't win state championships. Then he gets drafted as a backup. I think people are kind of reminded of, oh yeah, like that is a huge part of his story. And then you see him just getting his brains beat out every other clip with these hits that he's taking. I think it's endearing to be reminded of the underdog story and to see him getting up off the mat and continuing to push forward. The comeback against the Colts, the comeback against the Buffalo Bills. So I do think his stock is going to go up, yes.
From a football standpoint, I will say one thing to keep in mind. The Vikings saw this Kirk and far more. Like this is a snapshot of Kirk. It's, in the case of Mahomes, Kirk, and Mariota as much as possible. Probably not a lot. It's as favorable as you can possibly get with still being true to who the player was. The Vikings saw all of this in 2022 and still decided not to extend him. It's an interesting thing.
It is. Yeah, that's a great point. Everything we're seeing times 1,000, right? They took all that information in, Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi and everyone, and they elected. And it didn't, unless the reporting was way off, it didn't sound like the Vikings made a bunch of fair offers and it was Kirk and his camp. Like, Kirk has made it clear, I want to be here. I want to finish my career here. And it's more that the Vikings are kind of saying, we'd like to keep our options open, right?
Yeah, that's how I take it.
Let's see here. Brian North says, one point I want to make is how much this quarterback documentary shows how easy it is for a lot of guys to like playing with Kirk. He's a tough SOB. He's a really good quarterback. And to me, there's no more than 9 or 10 quarterbacks better than him right now. That is until you get to a playoff game with huge implications and he throws short of the sticks on 4th down and makes you remember, oh yeah, we might need a reset. Isn't that that's a great summation by Brian? And that you can say he is such a gray area quarterback. He is probably one of the 10. I think we all had him like 9th, 10th, and 11th in our quarterback rankings, right? So he's like, let's call him a top 10 quarterback in the world. All these crazy stats hanging in there with sore ribs, 4th quarter comebacks. But then there's just like certain things about him that are limiting, especially relative to the price that you're paying him. And, he can make all the logical reasons, which he did in the docuseries, for why he threw that pass to TJ Hawkinson. But at the end of the day, it's like Mahomes ain't throwing that pass to TJ Hawkinson.
Well,
Andy Reid might not be calling that play either, by the way. The play call wasn't the greatest play call.
Absolutely. But here's the thing about that play. And the documentary does a pretty good job of breaking down the pass to Jefferson against Buffalo. And the Giants game, I felt like they didn't really add much. But here's the thing that crystallizes when you binge this entire thing, and it's those 2 plays. Against Buffalo, in a huge regular season game, like as far as the flow of the game, 2 really good teams at the time, Kirk Cousins makes a throw to Justin Jefferson where your jaw drops. And as great as that catch was, Kirk Cousins made that throw. Like, he obviously put the ball in a place where this unbelievably talented receiver could catch it. Mm-hmm. And I think we were all like, oh my God, like that is, I think our first statement, each one of us, was far more, that's more un-Kirk than that's a great catch. And it was a phenomenal catch. In fact, I think got the ESPY for catch of the year or play of the year. But against the Giants with the same sort of thing, right? Big stakes. This is going to be it. He checked the ball down. So that note is absolutely perfect. And I guess my question becomes this. And yes, the play call probably was not great. But keep in mind, too, we don't know what the play call was on the Jefferson play, because that was a hope ball he threw there. And what we really get into then is why, when the season was on the line, and don't tell me Jefferson was double covered against the Giants. He was. Look at the coverage against Buffalo.
Right.
He's double covered. The safety's right there.
He's more than double covered, it feels like, on that
yes.
play. Yeah.
So, like, that's the thing.
In the Bills game, he says, we're going to throw it to Justin because Jefferson's going to have to make a play for us. I think he said that, like, going into the play. We're going to throw you a jump ball. I'm paraphrasing here, but he said, we're going to throw you a jump ball. You're going to have to make a play for us. But then in the Giants wildcard game, I believe Kirk says in that testimony in the doc that it wouldn't, he paraphrasing again, but he said, it wouldn't be fair for me to throw that ball to JJ being double covered.
Yeah.
So, like, it completely contradicted the first throw to the bit. Like, his reasoning makes no sense. It wouldn't be fair. He's the best wide receiver. I'd much rather you go out, and if that ball gets picked, or if it's just uncatchable, I would much rather see that than throw underneath the sticks to TJ Hawkinson 5 yards short of the first down marker.
Okay, there's some threads here. Let me keep going here. So John Robertson chimes in. John Robertson wants to stir the pot here. Judd, you bring up the ESPYs, the play of the year. And he says, I got a little reckless speculation for you guys. Did you happen to see the ESPYs? When Justin Jefferson won play of the year, during his thank you speech, he said, like everyone else, I want to thank the man upstairs, my family. Never mentioned the quarterback who threw him the ball on that play. Any other wide receiver would have mentioned the quarterback. And then when he was asked on social media to name his top 5 quarterbacks, Kirky Boy was not part of the top 5. Is there an issue with Justin Jefferson and Kirk Cousins? John Robertson. This is John Robertson.
Okay.
That's John. Okay. Don't put this on us. He's stirring the pot.
I've been dying to get at the second part of this, especially. Now, I did not watch the ESPYs, so I missed the thank you speech by Justin Jefferson. But I've been dying to get at the second part of the top 5 because it's interesting. Okay. So Justin Jefferson's list is probably dead on accurate. Like he is, Kirk Cousins is not a top 5 quarterback. That being said, however, when that's your quarterback, it is a little bit odd. You don't try and like shoehorn him into number 5.
Don't you put him in there just to make everyone feel good?
Well, and
put him
Justin,
at just number 4, maybe. You know.
And if you watch the clip that was released of Jefferson doing the ranking, he said, and I mean this is not a problem, but he said, like at number 2 or 3, got to include my guy Joe Burrow. It's my guy. Yeah. So yeah, I did find it. I found the list to be honest, accurate, and very, very probably fair and on point. All of that being said, I don't think you can completely ignore that he didn't put his quarterback on that list. And look, I mean, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And this doesn't mean that Justin Jefferson has to not like Kirk. Like, I hate Kirk Cousins, okay? But Justin Jefferson's going to be very acutely aware, especially as he signs his extension, of who his quarterback is going to be and what direction, and he should be. The thing about it is, I think fans sometimes think, well, Jefferson's going to get paid. Who cares? Well, if 3 schleps who do a Purple Daily podcast each day say, before we die, we would like to see this team win a Super Bowl. Guess what? Justin Jefferson, whose career is going to be, relatively short because careers aren't super long in this league, is probably thinking, how can you pair me, because I'm at the mercy of the quarterback, with a quarterback who's going to win me a Super Bowl before I die? So, like, it is interesting.
And let it be known that the Jefferson family, at least his brother, does watch Purple Daily. We saw that piece on Reddit. Okay, so they are
Hello,
acutely
Jefferson
aware
family.
of our,
we love you guys.
Of our mission statement.
Hey, Justin,
big fans. There is a part 2 to that quarterback rankings video. Everyone's making a big deal of the first part. There's a part 2 where he does rank the rest of the quarterbacks, and he had Jared Goff just a couple takes above Kirk Cousins, just like me. So, yeah.
Did you see
that out there?
There was a list that actually came out. I forget from whom last week, ranking the NFC quarterbacks.
It was like an ESPN segment or something.
Jared Goff was 1. Kirk Cousins was 2.
Okay. And then there was another one. It was like, it was an ESPN segment of some kind. Like, who would you want to have the ball in their hand? NFC North quarterbacks, ball in their hand with a chance to win the game. And they were debating Jared Goff or Justin Fields. It's like, okay.
I thought of you, though. The Jared Goff love that comes from this show because of you is spilling throughout the nation. Sweeping the nation.
Stuart Gonzalez Blank chimes in and says, something I noticed watching quarterback on Netflix. Watching Mahomes focus more on strength and conditioning during his workouts. Cousins focusing more on rest and recovery in his. Yeah, I mean, it also might just be Cousins had to focus on rest and recovery because his rib cage was being bashed in. But like in what we saw, Mahomes with his workouts, with his personality, aggressive, constantly pushing, right? And Cousins, a little more calculated, a little more conservative, just a little bit like takes Tuesdays off.
Ages too, though. In fairness to him, like he's what, 35?
Yeah, he's 8 years older or whatever,
Yeah,
or 7 years older. So, yep.
That didn't occur to me as a problem.
Ken Engel chimes in and says, I love the Vikings.
All right.
Feel you there, Ken. Feel you there, buddy. Jake Donovan, just wondering when you guys did your all-time Vikings draft for offense, how come nobody picked Randall Cunningham as their starting quarterback? So Dex, I had Favre 09,
I saw two things on
Tarkenton,
this.
Culpepper.
I saw two realms on this. That being the first one, and then the second one being, why didn't you pick him as the backup? Because he technically entered 98 as the backup.
Oh,
Which,
Wow, that's a great point. If
But
you're going
like-
to put Case Keenum on that backup list, you have to put Randall
yeah.
Cunningham.
So like,
That's right.
I got
That's a fair
that. I
point.
just I think we all just kind of assumed that he was a starter, which was not the case.
Right.
Fair point.
But then became obviously like the offensive player of the year. So yeah, I mean, should we have probably just included Cunningham instead of Gus Frerotte like I did? Yes. Also, I got a note that said, how does Declan just praise John David Booty any chance he gets? He doesn't take him as his backup. And I was like, well,
Wow, what a missed opportunity.
I know. I missed opportunity, but I did need someone who could actually come off the bench and win some games. Which
Maybe a
our
guy that
Gus
actually
Frerotte did.
played in an NFL
Yeah,
game
that would
before.
help. Yeah,
Be
not just the
helpful.
Rose Bowl.
Before we get to a little bit more feedback here, a couple things. If you guys could click the subscribe button and the like button on this live video here. And by the way, we're live just after 10 o'clock Central Time every Friday morning. We're discussing whether we should go live a little more often in the regular season. So we may or may not. But right now, at least in the off season, the Friday live stream is the only time that we're live until in-season vent line starts. So we've clicked the like button, the subscribe button, and let's also shout out our friends at the 3M Open. So that is a super fun event, and more top pros continue to opt into this tournament, Declan.
Yeah, we got Billy Horschel. Always a really good bet for me on strokes with Billy Horschel. Don't sleep on some Billy Horschel. We've seen those prop bets. You got Gary Woodland.
He also shot like an 85 or something crazy in a tournament a couple weeks ago and cried at the podium. Just like, I don't know, melt my heart, man. He's a real human being, that Billy Horschel.
Just like me, I shoot, if I have a meltdown and I shoot 118 or something, like, yeah, there might be some tears in the drive home. But at least Tony Finau is coming back to defend that championship. Great field. Go to 3mopen.com to get your tickets today. It's a whole week, July 24th through the 30th, too. You can watch some of the best golfers in the world. Go to 3mopen.com to get your tickets.
Yes. And speaking of golf, so at EcoFun right now, they have these ridiculous, awesome, souped up golf carts. There's a $1,250 4-seat EFI golf cart in stock for $64.99. They also carry these things in 400cc with 4-wheel drive for $82.99. So if you just want, maybe you live in a neighborhood or something and you just want a badass golf cart to ride around, go to the neighbors, go pick up the kids, whatever, check these things out. You can stop in to one of the two metro locations off 35 north of the Twin Cities in Forest Lake, or 35W south end of the metro in Burnsville. EcoFunMotorsports.com. EcoFunMotorsports.com. All right. Ann Keene chimes in and says, Judd says he chose Chris Carter for his Mount Rushmore, or for
yes, this was on Purple Access.
got it. Okay. Despite,
Tyler,
quote, people not liking him, why is that? He's one of my favorite Vikings players of all time. Is it due to how Chris Carter treated the press? What did Judd mean by that?
I've talked about this before. Chris Carter wasn't exactly the most well-liked guy. Chris Carter was in the end very about Chris Carter, which is not surprising. Wide receivers are weird. So it's not like CC was the only one who was a bit odd. But Chris could be, how can I put this well, off-putting. How about that? He could be very off-putting. Like, this is not a Zolgadian exclusive of, I'm breaking the news that Chris Carter. There have been plenty of stories, as I'm sure Dex can tell you too, about Chris Carter.
Yeah, my dad loathed Chris Carter. Just could not stand him. Now, he didn't like Moss's act. I remember him absolutely being beside himself when Moss walked off the field against Washington in that was 03, 04. I forget which one it was. But he especially, though, did not like Chris Carter, could not stand him. Now, to Chris Carter's point, he cleaned up his life. He got his life together with the Vikings, did a lot of great things. And there's certainly a faction of people who love Chris Carter for what he did and what he stands for. But there is definitely a realm of people that were very annoyed and could not stand him. Even as someone who was young as me, who saw only the tail end of Chris Carter, that's what I was told from my elders, if you will.
And just to be very clear about this, though, because it's important, if the guy was just considered to be sort of a bad guy or not a friendly guy, and he was like the first player that you loved, this shouldn't change your opinion. So, like, I think we also hold players to a standard if we find out that they're a jerk. Now, if they turn out to have done something criminally, the Darren Sharpers, who's a despicable person, totally different. But, just because Chris Carter might have been an off-putting guy, if you loved the way that he played the game and bought a jersey, I don't want my opinion or Declan to sway you at all. Because I grew up, a fan of Tarkington and Carew. And I can tell you right now, there are stories about them as far as being people back then that aren't completely flattering. But you know what? I was a kid. I don't give a damn. I love them on Sundays or when I saw them play. So I don't want my words about what I think about a person just as a person to influence your feeling. If you love that player, you should love that player.
I think too, like in today's age, just everything gets out now, right? Back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, even 90s, a lot of that stuff never, if somebody was a jerk behind the scenes or somebody treated someone poorly or whatever, like, or even if they were out being an idiot in public or something, like a lot of that stuff never got out. And so now you almost have to, if you want to, separate your love for a player in the arena that they're playing in versus unless it's something criminal, right?
Right.
I mean, like almost all the guys that I grew up idolizing just on the field, Kirby Puckett, Kevin Garnett, Randy Moss, like all these guys were either extremely hard to get along with behind the scenes or committed other transgressions that are not ideal, right? And it's just, I don't know. I guess I try to just silo it off to a certain point. Yep, I really love this player on the field, on the court, whatever it was.
I don't hold players, like if they're just sort of like bad guys, I don't hold them as athletes to like a standard of, well, if you're not like Kirk is, if you're not a really great guy, that's a problem. This is the answer, though, to the question, and I think Phil and Dex can back me up on this, to when people ask, well, you cover the team and you're not a big fan. When you're around the people, it becomes very hard to be a fan of the team because then you see the flaws. But that to be very, very clear on this is as an adult. So like when you're a kid, if you
that's
love a player,
kids aren't given media passes.
Well, but it's also, I'm just saying kids shouldn't be like, well, if you hear this guy's not a good guy, then you know what? No. Randy Moss was a transformational talent. It was awesome.
Yeah, people can make their own decisions. How much do you want to separate art from artist, basically? Jordan Wilmot says, I'm a 29-year-old from the northwest part of South Dakota. The northwest part of South Dakota? Okay.
So, like, near Montana.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. Kind of up that direction.
Yep.
Grew up a huge Vikings fan. Also a fan of the Miami Heat, the Pittsburgh Penguins, and the New York Yankees. So he's a Vikings, Heat, Penguins, and Yankees fan.
Wow.
All for different reasons and different times. Miami for Shaq and the Wade run. Yankees around the same time. Penguins around 2008. I watch your show daily. Love the show. Was wondering if any of you guys were close to being fans of any other teams outside of the Minnesota sports teams in your life.
I loved Donovan McNabb with the Eagles. In fact, both 6th and 7th grade yearbook photos for old Dex tweets are in a Eagles Donovan McNabb jersey. I love the Eagles. Yep, Mom allowed that, and Dad. Mostly, Dad was pissed. Mom didn't care. Dad was pissed.
Mom.
Outside of that, I'm trying to think like outside of Minnesota of teams that I really, really liked. Like I played a lot of NHL and I always liked the Kings jerseys. As classic, as a young kid, you're impressionable. You see jerseys and you get kind of impressioned by that as a young kid. So I definitely liked the Kings. Trying to think with baseball. I mean, I just grew up loving the Twins, so I don't really remember me.
Cubs for us, right, Phil?
Yeah.
So I'll give you my list here. So Charlotte Hornets, because I had a Charlotte Hornets starter jacket when I was a kid.
Everyone had one of those, didn't they? at
I
that
had like a
time?
3-year run as a Charlotte Hornets fan, and the Wolves were awful when I was a kid. And then when the Wolves became competent, I watched the Wolves and stuff, but the Hornets were kind of my first. I grew up because I was born in the mid '80s, and I don't really remember the North Stars being here because they moved when I was like 7 or 8 years old. So I grew up from age 8 until 15 without a local hockey team. So I became a Detroit Red Wings fan in the '90s.
Front runner.
Nice.
Part of it was geography. Part of it was
They were
They were
good.
awesome.
The
And
Russians.
yeah, Fedorov and Yzerman. They had a great team. And then I have my dad's side of the family, and my dad grew up in Chicago. So my grandma lived in Kankakee, Illinois. So my family from the Illinois and Chicago area, the Cubs and the Bulls were always kind of my secondary teams. So I was a huge fan of the Cubs and the Bulls, and I don't know. I root for the Cubs. The Bulls don't really matter. Once Jordan retired, it was like, all right, I'm not going to root for Eddie Curry.
Right.
I'm sorry. All due respect to Tyson Chandler, I'm good.
Yeah, I think I've always. I don't think I've been a fan of any team. Huge fan in football, hockey. I sort of like the Blackhawks when the North Stars left. NBA, no, but baseball. June of '82. I've always told this story. June of '82, the cable guy came to our house, and they turned on the cable, and there are the Pirates and Cubs. Like I think it was a Friday afternoon or a Thursday afternoon, from Wrigley.
Well,
I sat down and I
1:20 start time, probably.
6. The leadoff man would start at like 1 o'clock with Vince Lloyd, the leadoff man, followed by at that time Harry Carey and Lou Boudreau, and then Milo Hamilton in innings 4, 5, and 6. But anyway, I fell in love with the Cubs.
Yep.
Day baseball, true day
Me too.
baseball.
I would watch the Cubs in the '90s every day. Either there was always 1:20 or 2:20 start times every single day.
It is weird how impressionable you are as a kid, because like I could not stand the steroid era in baseball and thought steroid because my dad just loathed them. And I gravitated towards that. I even wrote like a bunch of research papers and like things on anabolic steroids, even in classrooms and in high school and middle school, of like how bad it was and stuff. But then as I got older, like it's a shame that these guys aren't in the Hall of Fame. Then like I flipped it. Wow. I remember like a couple of years ago, my sister's like, didn't you as a kid like used to despise Barry Bonds and Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa and all those guys? I was like, I did. And then I grew up and learned a little bit more about it, and they should 100% be in the Hall of Fame. So it's weird how as a kid you're very impressionable, and then as you get older as an adult, you kind of put some of those things aside, or how you can learn from it and kind of look at it from a different point of view too.
Dude, I remember because that '98 season as a Cubs fan, big time at the time, was one of the greatest summers of all time. And we could get WGN radio sometimes in the summer on a clear day. You could get that radio station in Minnesota. So I'd be like listening to Pat Hughes, right?
Yep.
On the call, and Ron Santo to see if Sosa was going to hit his like 61st home run or whatever. Yep. So I got one more here quick for you guys. And we will pump out an official third installment of our Netflix quarterback recap too for the weekend, but that won't be live. We're going to do that separately and probably release it tomorrow. Frank Marino says this needs to be stated on your show on Friday. Think about this. The two expansion teams from 1976, Tampa Bay and Seattle, have both won Super Bowls before the Vikings. They sucked for 30 years. The New Orleans Saints sucked for 50 years, have won a Super Bowl before us, and cheap shotted us on top of it. If the Lions win a ring before us, Judd owes everybody steak dinners at Manny's. I co-sign this with Frank.
Why is it on me?
With us
because
I love
the
this
sports
note.
dad. The sports dad should pay for his sports children's
Well,
meals.
the sports dad's going to be going to the Hubbard Empire to tap into them, and they can cover the bill for all of us to have.
However, you have to get it done. It's your treat at Manny's. If
and
the Lions...
one bite of my blue steak. One bite. I need one bite from you.
If the Lions win a Super Bowl, no. I don't approve of that.
Serve
I can do that. I'm fine with that. If the Lions win a Super Bowl before the Vikings, I think it would be more than just like me buying steaks.
Would you have to shut? You have to shut the franchise down if that.
I mean, think about the implication.
Shut it down.
I've never thought about this, but he just laid something out that's very frightening. That's like a great point. Two expansion teams won a Super Bowl. My God.
Frank, you son of a, speaking this into existence. All right, yeah. You can keep hitting us up throughout the week. Feedback tab in the Score North app, YouTube comment sections, and we get to as many as we can on these Friday live streams presented by Surly. You know what? Frank gets the Surly question of the day. Pour one out for Frank.
I'm popping the shirt. Old guy popping the shirt. God, am I cool? I'm so hip.
So cool.
Right, so cool.
I am so hip.
So hip and so cool, just like Danny Tanner from Full House. That's pretty much you, the sports dad himself. All right, appreciate you guys hanging out with us here on this Friday. We are less than 2 weeks away. Are we less than 2 weeks away? We're about 2 weeks away from Vikings training camp.
2 weeks from tomorrow. 2 weeks from Saturday.
The 29th. And you can see the sports dad down there with his little binoculars, trying to see who's lining up for special teams reps.
You know what?
Sunglasses?
I am super excited. I got to go buy
Sunglasses?
I am very excited, though, for training camp.
Old Macadac might make his return after about
I saw
5
that.
years.
Yeah, you'd be welcomed out there.
Looking forward to it. All right. Thanks for hanging out with us here. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die. Purple Daily.